Hello everyone, and I have been waiting to make this video because I knew it was coming because I listened to him when he was talking to Asmongold. He had a few projects lined up, so I knew this video was coming, so I was waiting because I just thought it was, it's just going to be like an absolute masterpiece. I just know I'm going to agree with him. You think, well, that's fanboy shit. I'm like, nah, because I just know who he is. You learn, YouTubers and stuff behaviour, so I'm waiting to see what he's got to say. Baldur's Gate 3. And, the landscape of gaming in general. Here we go.
What's up, everybody? This is the Dark Urges Man here, and today I want to take you down by the river. Larian Studios has lit the internet on fire with their latest dating simulator, one that gives Super Seducer a run for its money. By all accounts, Baldur's Gate 3 is a slam dunk success, and it's now the highest rated PC game on Metacritic ever.
Now, I just want to step in here because I can't remember if it is Metacritic or it's PC Gamer, but it's been 16 years since they've given a game 97. I'll look it up later, but that is crazy. 16 years since they've given a game that recommendation.
There's a lot of games on PC. It has taken one of the top 10 spots for most concurrent players on Steam. On August 6th, apparently the game accounted for 28% of total player time on Steam. Pardon my French, but that's fucking crazy.
As
far as I played, Baldur's Gate 3 has been an incredible game, and it is very refreshing.
Squirrel might be the single most adorable creature you can recall in all your stunted memory.
Oh, what's up, Squirrel?
So twee if it were climbing a tree.
Twee?
Yo, what the fuck? You like the squirrel? You were loving the squirrel. What the hell was that? Let's see, what the hell? I need to process that shit. You were loving the squirrel was cool.
No studio is more deserving of this kind of praise than Larian, who has toiled in the mines for far too long. But we're not reviewing the game today. Instead, I want to focus on this small pocket of contrarians still holding out at Helm's Deep. I want to talk about this IGN video. Baldur's Gate 3 is causing some developers to panic. And the video it's pretty good. Wait, is this IGN? Are you sure? It's filled with...
I just got to say in here, I consider IGN one level above Kotaku. Kotaku is the most ridiculous. I cannot even believe the business is around. And IGN, a long time ago, a bunch of gaming journalists realized you have to suck up to studios and developers in order to get access to the game that they're going to review. So it absolutely drowned the journalism field in useless reviews, because if they could criticize or whatever the studio, it just got done. So they're seeing this, given the fact that I think Kotaku's the worst and IGN's right there above that, I was super surprised that they actually did this.
Great takes and actual insight and commentary into the game industry, and not just giving away 9 out of 10 scores to every new release.
Developers should be looking at what Baldur's Gate 3 did and trying to replicate where they can, not jumping up to defend games that are cramming in practices that fans are getting fed up with.
He's right! But there's this sentiment going around that Baldur's Gate 3 it's just an unreasonable standard for AAA studios to meet. So we're gonna talk about that, because ladies and gentlemen, the companions in Baldur's Gate 3 are an irresistible thirst trap. Luckily for me, I can resist their temptations and quench my thirst with AirUp, the sponsor of today's video. Have you ever wanted to drink plain water but have it taste like flavored?
Alright, my buddy.
As time goes on. It's something that a lot of gamers are getting increasingly tired of. So naturally, as Baldur's Gate 3 was about to come out, we all wondered what the catch would be. Are there gonna be any dumb microtransactions? No. There are no in-game purchases in our game. We believe in providing a complete and immersive gaming experience without the need for additional purchases. Enjoy the game to its fullest without any additional costs or microtransactions.
I don't believe it!
This
Alright, hold on, man. My dog right now is interrupting production here. Dude, will you chill out? Alright, it's not gonna happen. He's now fallen over and is on his back. Man, it's not gonna happen, man. This was an unnecessary break. We continue on.
can't be right. Is this the prince who was promised? Well, the game's got to be fucking terrible then. What? We've gotten to a point where it feels like in the AAA gaming space, like outside of Nintendo, the idea of video games being complete at release and just a one-time purchase, that idea is almost extinct. Even games that are just supposed to be single player can be completely broken at release. Well, with ethics like this, Larian, it's no wonder some game devs don't want it to become the new standard. Nah, just keep pounding those microtransactions in. Just keep shoveling that crap in there. You know what my first reaction is when a new game comes out? Where are the slot machines? How can I gamble more money? I think the industry deserves a game like Baldur's Gate 3, and we deserve a developer like Larian. The biggest problem with microtransactions and in-game purchases is that it always affects the core gameplay.
And this is one of the things I wanted to mention is that, like, yeah, sometimes it is purely cosmetic. As someone who's been gaming for 30 plus years, you can always tell when something is just like an add-on. It's not going to fit the core gameplay. It's just kind of there. If you want it, you can have it. There's also things where you're like, this is egregious. You know, it's definitely egregious fighting, like profiting. Like, dude, you won't show the people your face, and now you want to talk to me. Not cool, homie. Not cool. It won't come up. Like sometimes he'll jump up into my lap with his front paws, and you could have seen him, but today he's like, nah, fuck you. Ain't happening, homie. I'm chilling. If you're chilling, then go to bed. Anyway, even though you're not a developer, you've got 30 years of gaming experience and you've seen the landscape change and you know certain things are allowed and not allowed, and you can very, very much tell sometimes when a company's just taking the shit too far. Taking it too far, you know? And now the standard is a battle pass. So seeing a statement like that from Larian Studios that just says, here's the game is perfect, go, is massive. Of course, there are going to be people that actually defend it and say it's an anomaly, and I'm like, why is it an anomaly? Why should it be an anomaly? Hold these motherfuckers accountable.
Usually in a negative way. Sometimes companies end up implementing anti-player design to then charge the players to make the game better, less tedious, or more customizable. Think about how Halo Infinite took away your ability to choose your own colors in order to sell that back to you. Like try to imagine Baldur's Gate 3 as a live service game with a battle pass. Jesus Christ. Okay, well now Larian has to figure out ways to provide continuous content, so they likely come up with easily copy and pasted content and quests for new seasons. You know, how do players unlock tiers in the battle pass? How do you incentivize them to spend more money? What do you put in the battle pass to make it worth completing? On and on the questions go. You see, without a live service or a battle pass, Larian doesn't have to mold and shape the game to fit that puzzle. All they had to do was focus on making the best video game possible, and I think they've done a bang-up job. And then the other thing with in-game purchases is you now have to take content out of the game that could have been unlocked by simply playing it, and you now have to resell it. Right? Another thing that really makes Larian's games stand out as RPGs is that they don't really make filler or fluff. Quests aren't handled like a checklist of chores and activities to just keep you busy for no other reason. But let's go into this topic of Baldur's Gate 3 being so unbelievably good that nobody else can make a game this good ever. Please, please, please put some thought into it before you proclaim this is what AAA gaming should be moving forward. 6 years and 400 plus people with insane funding due to the IP having given BG3 a big boost. It's truly unrealistic to expect this on a regular basis. And then some guy from Larian came out of the woodwork and was like, what funding? Just to be clear, Larian didn't receive funding from Wizards of the Coast to use the Dungeons and Dragons IP. Quite the opposite. They paid a licensing fee to use it. There are like standards and practices they have to follow with this IP. So it's even more encumbering than just making a new game based on an IP they already own, which makes it even more impressive. Then he goes on to double down after being called out. Clearly funding wasn't the right choice of words here. Replace that with budget, knowing that an IP with the legacy of this one is going to sell.
That right there is like when you just can't admit you're wrong. So you're like, so funding wasn't right, so budget. But that's the same thing. Like you can either have like infinite budget or an incredible like infinite funding. That legit makes no sense. Just admit you were wrong. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. So you're saying it's going to sell because of, you know, the history, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, Baldur's Gate, but modern gaming, you know, especially the way it is with like certain audiences that are definitely demographics and groups that that they appeal to. Like Fortnite is obviously a much younger group and stuff like that. What was it? Baldur's Gate 2 was what, 2004, and hell else? Divinity Original Sin was what, 2007 or something? I'm just shooting in the dark there with that one, but the point is this idea, like, so many people were just grabbed by the idea. Like, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
What?
This just perplexes me. Are you talking about the Dungeons and Dragons IP? Because most people associate that with the tabletop board games. Are you talking about the Baldur's Gate IP? Because the last game I heard about Baldur's Gate was Dark Alliance 2 in 2004. I reckon most people prior to this hadn't heard of Larian Studios and had never heard of Baldur's Gate before. What's also funny about this tweet and the situation in general is that people are proclaiming this isn't what AAA gaming should be. Yet another game recently came out that also had 6 years of development, a team 22 times bigger than Larian, with funding from a company that made $7.5 billion last year. And yet nobody is saying that game is creating an unrealistic standard. Why is that? Why is that? If you have the tools, the people, the means, and the funding, then you should strive for greatness. I don't understand why people think otherwise. You know, what are they actually thinking? Don't let this become the new standard because we can't make games that good. I think it's pretty clear what the difference in priorities is between like Larian and Blizzard. Blizzard is like trying to make money, and Larian knows they're gonna make money if they just make a good video game.
Yeah, like, absolutely. The clear difference is the fact that, like, there's this idea, like, when you create a product, Diablo 4 was clearly like, we'll make a game and we have to have this thing on here, this block is microtransactions and, you know, cosmetics, blah, blah, blah. We have to have this. Whereas, so there's the game and then there's the store. Whereas Larian decided, no, this is our vision, this is how it's going to be, we're going to make it this way. And if the game is minted, is excellent, people are more than willing to spend crazy amounts of cash on it. It's incredible. There isn't this idea of like, the game will make it kind of okay and stuff, and then the store, so that hopefully they buy stuff to make it easier. Instead, Larian went, let's make our game fucking amazing. And if it's amazing and people want to keep playing it, they want to buy more stuff for it. There's a whole Steve Jobs product thing in here that he did last time, which is like so accurate, but he's exactly right.
When you're at that level, you don't have to try to make money. Just make a good product. Like a lot of people, I'm deeply excited about what the lovely folks at Larian accomplished, but I want to preemptively push back against players taking that excitement and using it to apply criticism or a raised standard to RPGs going forward. Wouldn't it be great if Bethesda held this standard to Fallout 76? Wouldn't that have been great? What are you trying to say? Stop complaining about AAA game developers that get away with releasing half-baked shitty games? Just accept bad trends and...
Yeah, like, this is fucking blows my mind. Like, it's such an anomaly that it shouldn't encompass, you know, or the very idea that this has created a new standard is absurd. And given this current gaming climate, or whatever you want to use, that this is a one-off. Well, it's not a one-off. A studio has clearly shown you that if you make a complete and intact game with everything that is there, it is fucking going to make mad cash. It shouldn't, like, every other studio shouldn't be going, oh Jesus Christ, I can't believe this has happened. Oh no, this is a nightmare. Another studio made a fucking amazing game. It should be like, okay, we can learn lessons. We can see what they did and realize, like, all right, let's take notes. Let's take notes. But instead, people are like, oh no, shouldn't. This is absolutely set a new standard. Absolutely. Baldur's Gate 3 fucking nailed it. Every other guy, deal with it. Or studio. No. Fucking who gives a shit? Electronic Arts, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Deal with it. Change your goddamn outfit.
Shitty practices amongst the industry. Why wouldn't the best rated PC game of all time not raise the standards. This is not a new baseline for RPGs. This is an anomaly. Trying to do the same thing the same way, especially without the same advantages, could kill an entire group of studios. What advantages? The advantage of talent? Hard work? Foresight? Uncorrupted morals? These are things Larian has and all these other studios can easily attain. Baldur's Gate 3 is not an anomaly. It didn't just spring out of the ground. This isn't Larian's first game. They've been making top-down RPGs for over 20 years. Baldur's Gate 3 is simply the culmination of all that work, of all they have learned on an engine.
And that absolutely reminds me of like From Software. You know, they've been going for like whatever it is, 20 years from the release Dark Souls, and then, you know, Sekiro, and then it was Elden Ring, and people were like, give us an easy mode, give us an easy mode. And sometimes I say, no, we have a vision for our product, clearly have a big fan base. This is what we want our game to be. And they did it, and it was, what, Game of the Year? At like 3-4 different award shows. The most popular game, you know, like through the whole year. Uncontested, you know. Basically uncontested. I mean, let's be real. I mean, Elden Ring was clearly going to win, and it's the same for this. They didn't want to compromise. They didn't want to bow down to, like, you know, board pressure or whatever. Go, no, you have to do this. This is the standard now today. It's got to be a Game Pass. But to make money, you have to put a Game Pass in you. They went, no. We make a fucking cracking game because the game's so fun. They will then spend money if need be, and they don't even have to. 28% of the entire Steam player base was Baldur's Gate 3. That's fucking easy.
And they've been working on for many, many years. Baldur's Gate 3 is the culmination of a series or genre in the same way that Elden Ring and Smash Bros. Ultimate were. These aren't anomalies. These are really good games made by competent studios with a clear vision that have worked tirelessly to perfect their craft. They are efficient and smart with their work, constantly building upon what they did last. Larian is super familiar with the engine used to make this game. The controls are the same as original Sin 2. So much of the base work was already done years prior. But unlike Divinity Original Sin 2, one of the craziest advances is that apparently all of the scenes have been mocapped. Whereas in Original Sin 2, you just had to imagine what characters were doing. Again, it's a pretty funny comparison because that's the same type of storytelling Diablo 4 is doing. And then you look at Baldur's Gate 3 and it's just like, wow. But if you think about it, conceptually speaking, the older Smash Bros. Characters' movesets are pretty solid. And most of them didn't need any massive overhauls when it came time to make Ultimate. But you get what I'm saying? These studios work smarter. They don't settle for re-releasing the same game every year or tearing down the foundation and rebuilding it every 3 years. So that's why these games seem so impressive. Because to a lot of people, they haven't played Larian games. They haven't experienced these mechanics before. So it feels like it comes out of nowhere. I can't disagree with this one more. Whenever a game disrupts the industry and delights players beyond expectations, it absolutely raises industry and genre standards regardless of the why and how. Well said. We should celebrate landmark titles like this. Greed often breeds complacency, and once the profits start rolling in, you really see people's true nature. Do they want to do as little work as possible for the maximum amount of money? Do they still have the same passion? Does a guy with 1 million subs still have the same passion for his craft as a guy with 1,000? You know what I mean? Larian serves as a very good example to other developers, I would say. This is a great thread about why using a singular game to set expectations for everyone developing titles in a genre isn't useful and is instead foolhardy. This is one of those statements that 5 years from now is going to be looked back on as really fucking stupid. It's going to be looked back on as those people when cars were first coming out, they were like, cars aren't going to replace horses. That's foolhardy. People that cling to the old ways when something objectively better comes along, right? You could probably say the same thing about Mario 64 when that came out and revolutionized 3D games and platformers. I'm sure there was a bunch of people back then saying, well Mario 64 is an anomaly. You can't expect other studios to be able to accomplish this. You can't apply this standard to other platformers. It's not fair.
That's not fair at all.
Here's the thing, right? Wouldn't a company or a person genuinely passionate about their craft want to compete with Baldur's Gate? Competition breeds improvement. It creates better products and we all win in the end. Complacency seems to be what some of these devs are advocating for, or at the very least admitting they work for a studio that doesn't prioritize making good products as much as they should. I get what they're trying to say though, right? Don't expect every quarterback to be as good as Tom Brady, but every quarterback should try to be as good as Tom Brady.
I totally believe in that. Like, no game is ever going to come out like from every single studio, from every developer, and it's going to be what they want. It's going to be exactly, they nailed it. You know, there's no concessions made. Of course not. That's unrealistic. But what they're saying is, like, if you're going to try and aim for the top, get as fucking close as you possibly can be. And that's what we ask. The problem is, of course, and I'm going to stress this right now, that I don't blame a lot of developers. Like, for me, developers are a lot of game, you know, creators, programmers, animation and stuff. I don't think for a second they want to make a crappy game. Not at all. I think that they're the guy on the ground floor. You know, it's like trying to ask the person in Asda who stacks the bacon to implement, you know, I don't know, cost changes or something. But that's a board of somewhere, whatever, Walmart. It's the same thing, I think, with game developers. But look at, we go, game developers, what the fuck are you doing? Can you imagine how horrible it would be to be like creating a game for 6 years? People going, this is fucking dog shit. And you're like, I've just spent 6 years on this and whatever. I don't think for a second people, like the developers, the people on the ground creating the game, want to create a shit product. At least not all of them. You know, let's give it like 92%, you know. But it's, this memo comes down, you know, on a random thing going, oh, we have to get this done by this. From some guy who doesn't even like games, you know, he's in the boardroom, he just wants to see the little green arrow going up. I think it's very sad. Like, I think developers get all the heat. You know, they get all the, why are you so lazy? I don't think they're lazy for a second. You know, I think they really do love the job that they want to do if it wasn't hindered so much by some CEO asshole that wants to get the short, like, stockholder price up and wants to have that little green arrow for profits, you know? For people who probably I've played Sonic the Hedgehog once in 1989, or by the hell, you know, 1983. You know, it's so crazy.
I don't know a single game dev who has conveyed this sentiment about BG3. Instead, I've heard devs ask folks not to use the great things achieved by this team as a weapon to use against other devs. Now, this is the actual argument I think some of them are trying to present, right? Remember how obnoxious the PlayStation fanboys would get when they compared every video game ever made to The Last of Us 2? Yeah, nobody should be doing that with Baldur's Gate 3. The one or two devs they were quoting were talking about how you shouldn't be expecting every RPG studio to be making games on the scale of BG3 because not every studio has the time, effort, or manpower. Yes, but some studios do have the time and manpower. They just don't put in the effort. Nobody is saying Johnny Game Developer and his 2 college dorm roommates should make a 100-hour masterpiece RPG as their first game. Nobody's saying that. I don't think people are saying that BG3 is the new standard, but rather it should raise everybody else's standards, because a lot of other developers really fucking down in the ground, man. CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk, Fallout 76, Bethesda. This is why Starfield has such high expectations behind it, and why it will be such a disappointment if that game turns out to be a glitchy, bug-ridden disaster. So many of these other companies have the exact same tools and resources at their disposal at Larian. They just make terrible products. So yeah, this is what AAA studios should strive to achieve. And it's fine if they don't. But if they try, then they'll probably make a good RPG.
And this is what I'm saying at the end of the day is, how much is the individual team allowed, like, to control every aspect of the game they're making? And there's, how often did they get a fucking memo or some arsehole in a suit who came down from, I don't know, yacht, like, I don't know, he just came in from yachting, you know, I don't know, clubbing a baby seal or something, and going, look, I want this done, we have to get this out with the fucking 28 this quarter, blah, blah. Like, like, the difference is the attitude between, I think, whatever Larian did and being able to manage that vision and execute that vision without interference from people just going, oh, let's go. And like other studios with a lot of developers, I imagine, want to create as great a product, you know, they've ever made, but instead, again, to get some, you know, Bobby Kotick or whatever going, look, chug this shit out, stick a battle pass on it, you know, we'll make cash that way. It doesn't have to be that great. It doesn't have to be. No, people love Diablo. They love it. They'll get there. They'll play 4. Get the cash, the store up. That's all I'm trying to say. But anyway, thanks, Hackman, for another video. I think you nailed it. I'll see you all next time.